Hello class, today we're going to look at graphing quadratic equations. You can see I'm in section 9.4 in the study plan, so this is the ninth one I'm looking at. Or in your book, it'd be section 9.4, number 16 would be similar. So when we're graphing our quadratic, with this one we're looking for the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the x-intercepts, and the y-intercepts of the graph. So we're going to find all of these and then go ahead and plot them onto our coordinate plane. So let's talk about these different parts first before we start finding them with this specific example. So here's a quadratic equation that's already graphed. This is not the one that we're going to be graphing, but this will help us find the parts. Okay, so let's look at the first part that it asks us to find. So when we're working with the vertex of our parabola is going to be the point where your parabola starts to change directions. So you can see how our parabola is working its way down and then it starts to work its way up. So this is going to be labeled our vertex. Your vertex is going to be an ordered pair. Okay, so that's one of the parts we're going to find. The next part we're looking for is the axis of symmetry. So what the axis of symmetry is that this is going to be a vertical line that cuts our parabola in half. It's not actually graphed when we graph the parabola, but what you want to do is you want to identify that that's that vertical line that's going to cut right through the middle of your parabola. If you were to take your paper and fold it on that line, it would map over itself. So it tells you the distance away your parabola is from that axis of symmetry. And this is going to be x equals a value. And that x value of the vertex and the x value of your axis of symmetry will be the same. So notice that it goes right through the vertex, so you're going to have the same value. The next thing we're looking for is the x and y intercepts. The x-intercepts. This is going to be where the graph crosses the x-axis. Just like it was when we were graphing linear equations, our parabola can have up to 2. So notice that this one has 2 ordered pairs. So those are going to be ordered pair values. Remember, your x-intercept is always going to have a y value of 0. And the other thing that we are looking for is our y-intercept. So again, the y-intercept is going to be where it crosses the y-axis. So it's going to be an ordered pair. And notice the x value is going to always be 0. Okay, so these are the parts that we're looking for as we graph our parabola. So let's go ahead and look at the example we're working with, and we'll start the process. Alright, so we have the equation f of x equals 2x squared plus 8x. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that down here. And remember, the f of x is just telling us that this is a function, so we can write this as y equals 2x squared plus 8x. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to find the vertex. So the formula for finding the vertex is negative b over 2a comma f of negative b over 2a. Now remember, we're dealing with a quadratic which has a standard form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So a, b, and c are the values you're going to see in your formulas as we work through. So this b and this a are the b and the a that were in front of your x's. So for this example, a equals 2, b equals 8, and c equals 0. So we can put a plus 0 back there if you wanted to see that. So to find our vertex, we're just going to head and plug our values in to find the x. So I have my x value is going to equal negative b, which is 8, over 2 times a, which is 2. That gives me negative 8 over 4, which gives me negative 2. So my vertex, we have half of it. We have the x value, which is negative 2. To find the y value, what we're going to do is we're going to do f of negative b over 2a, which means f of negative 2, since we just found negative b over 2a is negative 2. And all that means is take this, plug it in for x, and see what y equals. So I have y equals 2x squared plus 8x. I'm going to plug this value in to x. So y equals 2 times negative 2 squared plus 8 times negative 2. And we just go through our order of operations. So we have 2 times positive 4, negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2. 8 times negative 2 is minus 16. And we have y equals 8 minus 16, or y equals negative 8. So this is my y value. So there's the vertex. Once you know the vertex, your axis of symmetry is pretty easy to find. So our axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. Well, we've already found negative b over 2a. That is right here. Again, it's the same x value that you had in your vertex. So our axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2. Okay, so we've found the axis of symmetry. We've found the vertex. Moving right along, let's find the X-Intercept. So we're going to find the X-Intercepts. Okay, so on our previous slide, remember we said that our X-Intercept is going to be when y is 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in 0 for y and solve for x. So our equation is y equals 2x squared plus 8x. So my x-intercept is when y equals 0. So I'm going to have 0 equals 2x squared plus 8x. So let's go ahead and solve this. So you have a couple different options. You just learned how to use the square root property. You use how to complete the square, quadratic formula, factoring are all different ways. I would start with factoring. So I'm going to take out the GCF since there's only two terms here and it's not a difference of squares. So we have x plus 4 is left over. Once you have a product, we can take 2x equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0. To solve, we divide by 2, and we get x equals 0. To solve this one, we subtract 4, and we get x equals -4. So these are the values that we found when we plugged in 0 for y. So this, we already know the y value is 0, but the x value is also 0. With this one, again, we know the y value is 0, but the x value is -4. The last thing we need to find is the y-intercept. And this is when x equals 0. So I have the equation y equals 2x squared plus 8x. So we get y equals 2 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0. So we're taking the x value of 0, plugging it in, and see what it produces. Well, 0 squared is 0, times 2 is still 0. 8 times 0 is still 0. So we get y equals 0. So our x value was 0, and that produced a y value of 0. So let's go ahead and plot our points, and this should give us enough information to create a problem. Alright, so our vertex is our first point. That's at -2, -8. So I'm going to go -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's my vertex. Since my a value is positive, my parabola will open up. If it's negative, your parabola will open down. So a little shortcut there when you start working with these. The axis of symmetry is going to be a vertical line through x equals -2. Again, when you're graphing this in Math Excel, we're not going to need to include the axis of symmetry, but that's what it would look like. It would be a vertical line through your vertex. The x-intercept and the y-intercept. Well, we have 0, 0, and -4, 0. So x-intercept at 0, 0, and then 1, 2, 3, -4, 0. Your y-intercept is at the same spot as one of your x-intercepts. Remember, the origin is where the x and the y-axis cross. So if one of your points is at the origin, that's going to be considered an x-intercept and a y-intercept. Now we connect the dots to make your parabola. What the axis of symmetry does is you want to make sure you're staying about the same units apart. So you can see how we're about 2 units apart, and as it grows, it should grow apart at the same distance. That's what your axis of symmetry does. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this in Math Excel with all of our information. So the first thing we're going to do is our axis of symmetry. So let's go back to our work. And our axis of symmetry is x equals -2. So you want to go ahead and make sure we plug in x equals -2. That doesn't tell us the x value yet. Excellent. All right. So now we want to find the x-intercepts. And type an ordered pair, use a comma to separate the answers as needed. Okay, so one of our x-intercepts was at 0, 0, comma, the other intercept was at -4, 0. Okay, so let's go back to our work, and our x-intercepts 0, 0, and -4, 0. Check our answers. Good. And then we want to find the y-intercept. So we identified our y-intercept was at 0, 0. And we'll check our answer. Good. And then we're going to use the graphing tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the size of the graph a little bit. If you try to graph the points right now, it's going to probably be a little difficult. So I'm going to go increase, and I'm going to go to maximum. Okay. So we have a couple choices over here for our tools. We're dealing with a parabola, and it's vertical, so we're going to pick that one. The first point that I'm going to graph is my vertex. So notice that up here in the top left it's saying click the graph to plot the vertex of your parabola. So we'll go back to our work, and we found the vertex -2, -8. So that's the point we want to graph. So -2, -8. And now it's wanting us to click the graph to plot a point on your parabola. So we can use the x-intercept, the y-intercept, any of those as long as we're using one of those values. So we go ahead and use one of the x-intercepts, which is at -4, 0. So I'm going to click there. Okay, and that's what we need is 2, so we want to go ahead and save that. And then we'll hit check answer. Fantastic. Okay, so on that last step you could have used 0, 0 also as your second point, but you do want to make sure that you use the vertex as your first point as it's directing you to do. Hope that was helpful in graphing quadratic equations. Have a good day.